What's going on, summoners? Welcome back to another ProGuides Wild Rift video. I'm Kangas, and today we're going over some overpowered picks in the lower elos of play. This list will be for anybody platinum rank and lower, so higher skill cap champions will be less prominent. But before we begin, I gotta go over our question of the day. Who do you think would do more damage? All of Jinx's rockets from her music video, or one real-life Malphite ultimate? Now, I'm no scientist, but remember that Malphite is literally the size of a mountain and moves a couple of meters at a high velocity, which could theoretically terraform the entire environment. So yeah, that's my answer. But let me know yours in the comments down below, and let's get into the video. Going into our first pick, we have one of only two masters of the Wuju style, Wukong. Growing up, Wukong was a mischievous Vistayan that always liked to play pranks on his hometown. Kinda like a young Naruto, but less fox and more monkey. As expected, young Kong's actions had him banished from his village after he claimed an elemental dragon was coming to destroy the village. Now as an outcast, Wukong sought new resolve and people to prank. Finally, after years of searching, he ran into Master Yi, who would not leave his destroyed village. After weeks of pestering Master Yi, the worn-out master accepted him as his pupil. This is where Wukong was gifted his legendary staff crafted by Doran himself. Doran is the weapon master of Runeterra who is responsible for in-game items such as Doran's blade or Doran's shield. And according to the lore, he also made Wukong's weapon. This magical staff can increase in size and has increased damage when compared to other weapons. This is why Wukong's first ability, Crushing Blow, has slightly increased range because the staff is literally being extended mid-attack. And speaking of Crushing Blow, this ability recently received a minor buff in 2.3a. This ability now has 80% healing when hitting a minion, which is a buff from the previous 50% that it used to provide. This change is noteworthy because it means that Wukong can actually sustain in lane longer and safer than he previously was able to. This massive 30% increase in healing helps Wukong earn secure last hits on minions and proper sustain against other bruisers. This increased healing on minions will also encourage players to last hit with the ability more often, resulting in better farming for the Monkey King. Oh, and by the way, the Monkey King is a title that he gave himself in the lore, just so you know, he's not actually a king of anything. Another noteworthy difference between the lore and the game mechanics is his second ability, Warrior Trickster. In the lore, he set up a scarecrow that looked just like him to fool Master Yi with a surprise attack. In the game, this ability works more like a clone, mimicking Wukong's attacks and abilities. But who knows, maybe it's just secretly a cousin of Fiddlesticks working behind the scenes. Either way, the results can have Wukong unleashing two crushing blows at the same time on the same enemy. And this is also primarily how Wukong takes down towers for early plates and gold. Wukong is now a more sustainable top laner, landing nicely in the S tier and our overpowered pick for low elo. Now before we get into our next champion, I want to remind you to check out our Discord down in the description below. We got a buzzing community and are always welcoming new Wild Rift players, and sometimes we even have fun stuff like giveaways, so go check it out. So our previous pick, Wukong, was a Vistayan, and our next pick is one as well, Ahri, the Nine-Tailed Fox. Vistayans are a chimeric race of Runeterra that are the weaker magical descendants from enlightened mortals that took the power of the spirit world into themselves. This explains why Ahri has magical powers and can read people's memories. In the lore, Ahri is cursed with the ability to see other people's entire past lives, while she can remember almost nothing about her own past. Ahri does not know her own people, where she was born, or even what Vistayans are meant to do. Instead, she works off natural instinct, coming to those who are about to pass by showing them pleasant memories of meadows before their dying breath. Ahri is trapped in a vicious cycle because she needs the essence of life to keep her powers, but she feels horrible for all these people dying around her. This is most likely why her passive name is Essence Thief, because she literally takes the life essence from her enemies. In-game, Ahri needs to stack this passive by landing 3 abilities to heal her for 45% of her ability power. This is an easy feat to accomplish in-game because of Ahri's reliable and long-ranged charm. Charming an enemy is better than stunning an enemy because it actually forces them to walk back towards your champion, making follow-up for you and your allies even easier than a normal crowd control spell. In lower elos, the majority of players don't actually utilize the range of this incredible ability. It can reach over walls and guarantees that her first ability, Orb of Deception, will land on the target that she's aiming at. And yes, this ability is also excellent for starting team fights. Ahri just needs to wait for an enemy AD carry to overextend while poking, and then she can dash in and land a devastating charm that will initiate a favorable team fight. The best part about Ahri's kit is that even if she misses this charm, she can still dash out of harm's way and wait for another champion to initiate the team fight. With the ability to safely start engages and shoot through tanks with true damage from her first ability, Ahri is a solid S tier champion and a great choice for low elo players in any region. Now, a champion with a strangely similar lore to Ahri is Evelynn, the Agony's Embrace. The only similarities between Ahri and Evelynn's lore is that they would both lure people in with their charm. While Ahri needed the life essence to live off of, Evelynn needed the suffering and anguish from people's emotions to keep herself stable. Evelynn is not a Vestian like Ahri, but instead the primordial embodiment of agony incarnate. For centuries, she was a powerless shadow with no physical form until the Great Rune Wars plagued Runeterra. With ample amounts of anguish emanating from the land, Evelynn gained power and soon a physical demonic body of her own. However, over time, this power began to fade as the Rune Wars came to an end, meaning Evelynn would need a physical body to cause her own anguish to the world. The goal of Evelynn's physical form was to be pleasuring for humans so that they wouldn't be afraid of the shadow knives that were about to take them out. And this heavily relates to Evelynn's in-game passive, Demon Shade. In the lore, Evelynn is able to stay as a shadow, basically being invisible to everyone that she passes at a distance. But when she needs to deal damage, she embraces her physical form, causing her to be revealed to the foe she is close to before delivering a painful blow. And this also explains why Evelynn's Demon Shade heals her, because she is transferring to her original form and repairing herself. This patch doesn't just have Evelynn healing herself in the shadows, because Riot decided to add 4 mana regen to any champion wielding Smite. This passive mana regeneration is major for Evelynn and her kit because she can clear the monster camps more reliably without having to rely on blue buff. This means that Evelynn can spend more time ganking lanes and less time worrying about clearing monster camps. In-game, Evelynn's demonic powers are shown in her ganks because of her kit's setup. Passively, she's invisible at level 5, and her second ability, Allure, turns into a charm after a small charge-up time. This means that the enemy champion can not only not see the ganking jungler until it's too late, but also sets them up to be crowd controlled so that they can't even escape their horrible fate. With perfect ganking potential, Evelynn is still in our overpowered picks for jungle this season. And of course, Evelynn does belong to the role of jungler, and if you're interested in learning that role, we actually just released a challenger jungler video, so check that out after this one if you want to. Now making our way to the bot lane is a girl who delivers more than just spunk, Miss Fortune. The gun wielder does not have ancient magical powers like the champions before her, but she's still able to take care of herself just fine. Sarah Fortune was born to her mother Abigail Fortune in Bilgewater. Sarah would soon find her fortune taking a turn for the worst when Gangplank started making demands. Gangplank wanted Abigail's legendary pistols and she promptly refused. So Abigail Fortune and her husband were murdered by Gangplank in front of Sarah as a young girl. In his spite, Gangplank even destroyed the 2 legendary pistols Abigail had made to show that her craft meant nothing to the pirate. This event of course traumatized the little girl, but sent her on a warpath of revenge rather than feeling sorry for herself. Sarah made a name for herself after rebuilding her mother's pistols, then taking a dozen wanted posters and killing all the men on them within a week. From that point forward, Sarah Fortune was known simply as Miss Fortune, because anyone who ran into her was bound to have a bad time. And this message still rings true with Miss Fortune in the Dragon Lane. The dual wielder is infamous for her burst damage and passive mobility. Her primary form of damage comes from her passive Love Tap that resets between differing targets. This makes switching between poking champions and minions all the more effective while in lane. This behavior of changing poke between minions and champions is even more encouraged by her first ability, Double Up. This extra large bullet bounces off the first target it hits, dealing extra physical damage to the first target and 150% critical damage towards the second target. This makes hiding behind minions a terrible choice when fighting against Miss Fortune. And this comes in handy against strong AD carry picks like Ezreal, who tries to stay back during the laning phase. By punishing the enemy AD carry with her critical poke, it prevents them from last hitting farm and slowly takes away from their gold intake. But if Miss Fortune truly wants to clear a wave or take down an enemy champion, her ultimate bullet time hits everything in sight. This massive wave of bullets is the perfect teamfight ability and can kill just about anyone who takes the brunt of the attack. With a kit designed for taking on multiple champions, Miss Fortune is our AD carry for this week's overpowered picks. And the last pick is one who synchronizes very nicely with Miss Fortune, the cow himself, Alistar. Alistar was one of the first champions in League of Legends to be designed, and his playstyle has barely changed over the years. The Minotaur started his life along the Great Barrier Mountains outside of the city Zaun. Alistar was a well-represented noble warrior of his clan, and so respected in fact that the clan came to him when it came time to decide whether the Minotaurs would join the force with Noxus. The Great Warrior didn't trust Noxus and made his point clear in front of the neighboring clans, but no other clan came to the same decision. Now surrounded by enemies, Alistar was forced to fight as a beast in a gladiator-style arena. Alistar lost all of his clan to the vicious games and became the most frightening Minotaur left in chains. A young servant girl named Aelia showed Alistar kindness and one day set up an escape route for the rogue Minotaur. However, the two of them were caught by Noxus soldiers, a task that the soldiers were clearly not qualified to handle as they were destroyed by Alistar in a blind rage. Unfortunately for Alistar, Irelia had left on her boat in fear of being consumed by his rage as well. So now Alistar wanders the Dragon Lane, knocking up anyone in his path on his way to find Irelia. Pulverize is Alistar's first ability and creates an opening for strong AD carries, just like Misfortune, to unleash a flurry of attacks. This ability synchronizes perfectly with his third ability, Trample, because Trample can start gaining stacks while the enemy is still being knocked up by Pulverize. At max stacks, Alistar is given another form of crowd control in the form of a stun from his next auto. Meanwhile, during the entire fight, Alistar's AD carry is unleashing a torrent of damage with their own combos, or just unleashing their ultimate because they're lazy. Alistar is a resistant warrior that stands strong in the Dragon Lane, and that's why we recommend him as your next support on Wild Rift. Well, those were our 5 overpowered picks for low elo players. If we talked about any of your mains today, give us a shout out in the comments below. And while you're there, don't forget to answer the question of the day, like the video, and sub to the channel. That's it for today's video, so best of luck on the Rift, everybody. Stay hydrated, and I'll see you in the next one.